Today we're going to talk a little bit about breastfeeding and nipple confusion, whether that be via the bottle or pacifier. So I want to give my take on it. I do want to start off by saying I'm not a lactation consultant in any way, shape, or form, nor a doctor. I'm just a mom. I have breastfed 2 babies. I directly nursed them. I did not really pump. I did not use formula, so they did not really get exposed to bottles. And we were a pacifier family. Both babies have used a pacifier. Pretty limited with our pacifier use is how I would describe us. So let's jump into it. First of all, when you have a newborn baby, you do not want to confuse them. The goal is that they latch. That is your primary goal if you're wanting to breastfeed, of course. You want them to latch onto you and directly nurse. This is number one. Anytime that they are showing that sucking reflex, anything like that, you would prefer not to give them a pacifier and instead you want to nurse them. This is going to help establish your supply. That is them demanding, and then your body will supply. So number one, milk supply and a proper latch. Now, if you don't want to breastfeed full time, or they're going to end up in daycare, at some point you're going to want to introduce a bottle. You need to be very careful with how frequently and how soon you introduce a bottle. You don't want to wait too long. If you don't introduce a bottle till 4 months, they're not going to know what a bottle is. They're going to refuse it. They're only going to want to breastfeed. But if you introduce a bottle day one and you're doing 50% bottle feedings from day one, they're going to get really used to that bottle and they're going to start to refuse the breast probably, because breastfeeding is more work. Typically, a bottle is an easier way to get milk out. It's easy. Breastfeeding requires effort. There are ways to help combat this. So I would not introduce the bottle for the first couple of weeks. I would, and then when you are ready to introduce it, slowly, 1 bottle a day type thing, not a bunch. You want to have slow flow bottles. You do not want that milk to come out fast and be too easy. You also want to pace feed. Not an expert on this, but look it up. And basically it has to do with them getting the milk slower. Don't just tip that bottle up and it just goes right down. You want them to have the milk slowly, again, to more so mimic breastfeeding and keep them on track with directly nursing. Then there's pacifiers. I gave my babies pacifiers. I was not worried about nipple confusion because I personally did not believe in nipple confusion. I believed in bottles create lazy breastfeeders. Pacifiers don't give milk. So I'm like, well, how can that make my baby mess up on breastfeeding? I didn't believe it could. And in my experience, it didn't. Now, obviously, if you have a newborn baby and they're trying to directly nurse, they're trying to get used to this pacifier, you gave them in that pacifier, you gave them in this bottle, you gave them in this other type of bottle, they could start to get a little confused. It's a lot going on. So you want to be minimal. I will personally say I do not think a pacifier affected my breastfeeding journey negatively at all. I had no problems. In the beginning, you need to be careful. When your baby is rooting around, you should not just keep plugging them with the pacifier. They need to nurse. They need to nurse on demand. They need to get your supply going, and they need those nutrients. Now, I don't think a pacifier is bad. Say mom is in the shower or on a walk or something like that and is going to be back to baby in the next 5 to 10 minutes. I don't think it's bad for dad to give them a pacifier to literally pacify them for 10 minutes. Say you're on a drive home and mom's sitting in the back and you can just give them that pacifier for the last 5 minutes of the drive if they're fussing. I don't think that's bad. But if mom, you were available to breastfeed and you were constantly giving them pacifier instead of offering them milk, I don't think that's a good habit to be in. I think you should be giving them milk. I think that's very important. So I think the pacifier can be a tool, can be used well. Now, sometimes what I think you have to be careful is using the pacifier for sleep. It's a pro and it's a con. Let me tell you, we did it, and in some ways we regretted it. During those first few months, we'll just say somewhere around 0 to 6, they can't put it in their mouth themselves. I don't exactly remember what month baby learned to do that. But when the pacifier would fall out during naps or sleep, they would wake up sometimes. And that was so frustrating. It became a struggle where we were like, do we just take the pacifier away? Because it's disrupting their sleep. I was ninja crawling around the crib, trying to put the pacifier back in their mouth without them waking up. I didn't know sometimes what was the right decision. So I don't know if I would advise the pacifier for sleep, but I understand if you use it because we definitely did. Some other negatives with the pacifier are that you have to break it eventually. It's up to you how you do so. I would not do extended pacifier use. I would try to wrap it up between 12 and 18 months at the latest. Maybe once they get those molars in or those canine teeth in, then be like, all right, time to wrap it up. I would also limit when and where they get the pacifier. Try to make it, say if you let them sleep with it, it stays in the crib or it stays in the car seat. Try not to have them all over your house. I don't think that's a good habit to be in. Have them in limited places. Don't have 20 of them laying about. Have just a couple and have them in select locations for select times and situations. You know, baby's going to get shots. I'm absolutely going to give them a pacifier. Absolutely. So that's a little bit of an overview on my take on like bottles, pacifier, breastfeeding, nipple confusion. Does it actually exist? Does it not? I'm not 100% sure I believe there's confusion. I think there can be, but I think If people are blaming nipple confusion on why your baby stops breastfeeding, I would say more commonly your baby refuses to breastfeed because they've had bottles and they're becoming a lazy nurser. They would rather get an easy bottle of milk than a difficult nursing session. So I think you have to be careful with introducing the bottle, not doing it too much, having some balance there. And maybe if you notice that they're starting to fuss at the breast, maybe you need to back off on bottles for a little bit and try to just directly nurse them. Have some, give some take, pay attention to what they're doing. But if breastfeeding is your goal for the long term, you definitely want to establish that you are breastfeeding, you have a good latch, and that is your primary form of milk. The bottle can easily take over. Not saying bottles are bad, but it's just if that's not what your goal is, then we're trying to work towards your goal. So there's confusion and there's laziness. Be careful of both of them, honestly. Don't overwhelm your baby. Don't give too many options. Keep it simple. In the beginning, nurse your baby. If your goal is breastfeeding, your job is to nurse your baby. That is your primary goal. So I hope this helped somewhat. It was at least some thoughts. I don't know if this brought more clarity or more confusion. Hopefully a bit of clarity and some different thoughts and opinions on the subject. Whatever you give your baby and whatever you do, it's all personal choices, but your choices do come with consequences. They do come with habits and routines. And every time you do something, you're establishing those. So make sure that they align with what your goals are. And don't forget to be forward thinking in your decisions and in your choices. And that can be very hard. When you have a newborn and you're sleep deprived, that's when things happen that you didn't think you were going to do. That's when you give the pacifier even though you didn't mean to, or you co-sleep, which was not your plan at all. Have plans in place ahead of time and keep communicating with your partner if you feel like the plan needs to be adjusted. I wish you good luck if breastfeeding is your goal and going to be your journey. Remember, latch and nursing directly are the priorities. So good luck to you. Check out some of my other videos. I will definitely have some more on breastfeeding. Comment, like, subscribe. If you have anything to say about this video, go ahead and comment. If you have advice for other new moms that are expecting and concerned about nipple confusion or what they should do as far as pacifiers and bottles. And I hope I will see you in the next one.